$36 billion. That's how much stimulus money is going out today. The bulk of the money will show up in bank accounts for Social Security recipients who don't file taxes. Only 1 million paper checks were mailed, so direct deposits should be available now.
Millions of people who receive money from Social Security could get a second check.
Such as people who are disabled or blind and meet income qualifications get their payments on the first of the month. This could be a problem if the first falls on a weekend.
So we know one thing. President Biden can send out more stimulus by the end of the year, so let's see if he actually... Up to $6,000 is currently available for many people, and this extra money has been allocated to help Americans through this time. And now President Biden's relief bill. The IRS has confirmed that there will be several important changes next year to tax refunds. And so here it is. Millions can expect to be seeing several changes to the IRS tax breaks starting next year. Big tax breaks were enacted for the 2021 tax year, and for most of those tax law changes expired at the end of the month. As a result, the child tax credit and the dependent care credit, earned income credit, and other popular tax breaks are different for the tax year than they were for 2021. So the Inflation Reduction Act just might impact your tax return as well. Other 2022 tweaks are the result of new rules or annual inflation adjustments. Some of these changes may affect how your tax refund check will be. And so back in 2021, for instance, major changes were made to the child tax credit for 2021, but they were only temporary. The credit amount was increased, the credit was made fully refundable, and children up to 17 are qualified. Half of the credit amount was paid in advance through monthly payments, for instance, and Joe Biden and congressional Democrats tried to extend these enhancements for at least another year, but they haven't been able to get done so far. Significant improvements have also made the child and dependent care credit for 2021 a little more difficult, but the changes are only applied for this year as well. By way of comparison, the credit was 20 to 25% of the $8,000 in eligible expenses for a qualifying dependent. For now, everybody, the 2022 child care and dependent care credit is non-refundable. The maximum credit percentage also dropped from 50 to 35. Fewer care expenses are eligible for the credit as well. For 2022, the credit is only allowed for $3,000 expenses for one dependent. And also, more workers without qualifying children were able to claim the earned income credit to their tax return, including both younger and older adults. Unfortunately, those enhancements expired at the end of the year. Without the 2021 improvements in place, the minimum for a childless worker to claim the tax credit backs jump up to 25 to 22% of your tax return. So, folks, there were many unclaimed stimulus checks, and many people haven't even got them yet. They were worth around $1,500 to $6,700 for some people. Multiple news sources have reported that in many of these cases, the people who got these checks haven't claimed them because they haven't realized it came earlier in the IRS letters. So in order to get this money, the people who got the checks through the IRS letter haven't even filed their taxes for the 2021 federal income return. There are so many people in this group that despite that, they're still eligible to claim the benefits. Many of these who haven't been registered to file the taxes are due to a very low income. Folks who are single taxpayers under 65 didn't have to file a tax return if they got less than $12,000. The credits are still remaining the same. However, child tax credit and earned income credit are different, and during the month of this year, during January, the IRS sent a letter issuing $1,400 stimulus payments to pretty much everybody. So folks, hopefully President Biden must do more for the American people and send out stimulus payments right now. Tell me what you think in the comments down below.
Stock. So you have sort of that liquidation preference. That stuff is impossible to find out about unless you're maybe in the C-suite or a venture capital investor.
So what's interesting about this is there a way then, is it almost like if you're an employee at this company, you still need public markets to make sure that you can monetize that transaction or find at least price transparency? I thought that we were trending towards this idea that you don't need public markets. You don't need that liquidity anymore. You can just transact among private parties and it'll all be fine.
I think on the buyer side, that's true. I think there are plenty of resources for venture capitalists to find the right price. They can do diligence on a deal. But for the average startup employee, for example, so say they want to go and buy a house, they can't wait the 13 years on average that it takes a company to go public. They don't have very many options and they don't know who to go to. And in some cases, there are people out there offering things like forward contracts and saying, I will pay you to buy your equity. And then in the case of an IPO or in 5 years, then we'll get to it. So sort of these examples of forward contracts or futures.
Do you think that takes some of the luster away from those options packages and equity packages that you get for going to work at these private companies?
I've spoken to a few recruiters who have said that's now something that startups are thinking about when they're recruiting, that they will have to either put a chart on the offer letter that says this is exactly how much your equity is worth. They have to be a bit more transparent. And then they do things like tender offers where they will offer to employees, hey, we're doing.
So what can you do right now to protect your money? I have expert advice. Money. It is tight for many of you right now, and with so much uncertainty about the next possible stimulus package and with unemployment about to expire for many in Michigan, it's time to have some real conversations. Let's begin with your landlord.
Communication is absolutely imperative.
Melanie Ducanel is with the Better Business Bureau of Southeastern Michigan.
Tell them where you're at. Tell them that you're, maybe able to pay a portion of your rent. That's good faith.
For stimulus checks, everybody, several states have yet to spend crisis relief funds that were received from the American Rescue Plan. The lawmakers are now being urged to allocate any unused relief funds towards a new stimulus package. And this is what that means. This can mean a one-time $2,000 stimulus check can be approved. And according to economists, there are many states that have yet to spend all of their stimulus funds that were received from the American Rescue Plan. So, Pittsburgh has yet to spend or designate how it will spend about 63% of the American Rescue Plan Act. So now, funding that it received though, Pittsburgh received about $355 million from President Biden. And according to the federal government, the money can be used to support the stimulus efforts. Funds may be obligated, though, by the end of the year, end of 2024, and the end of 2026 for when the money is to be spent. The city's current American Rescue Plan budget includes allocating nearly $78 million to the operating budget to avoid layoffs and providing a 3% wage increase to non-union cities and city employees and filling in other gaps in the budget. Now, President Biden said the city expects to spend all of the cash by the end of next year. So Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf once again called on the state lawmakers to approve his plan to give a check to approve his plan of almost $300 billion. To approve his plan of $500 million of the $2.2 billion of unspent federal relief money to give most people in Pennsylvania a one-time state stimulus check. Both the president and President Biden got the congressional approval for the stimulus funds. Now, Wolf's state stimulus plan has not had a good reception in the Republican legislature in that state. One senator said his Republican colleagues are not keen on stimulus checks, preferring to spend that money on other things. He also wants to save money for future deficits. Now, Governor Wolf says the Republicans and the Republican legislature should act now to provide direct relief for families that are hit hard by inflation. He stated, I think we're all open to hear what the other side wants to do with the money, but we need it to be in the pockets of Pennsylvanians, and we need it now. Without Republican support, there is no state stimulus check, he said. So, hopefully, the governor of Pennsylvania can send out stimulus checks sooner than later. Democratic Representative, however, Elon Omar, has previously introduced legislation that will create a guaranteed income program in the United States to send $1,200 a month to most Americans. The Support Act, co-sponsored by progressive lawmakers Cori Bush and Pramila Jayapal, Dwight Evans, and Jamal Bowman, would first create a $2.5 billion grant. A grant price, that is, to fund local pilots in guaranteed income. So the National Guaranteed Income Program would also start in 2023, in 2028 as well, sending $1,200 a month to adults making up to $75,000 a year. Heads of households will also get stimulus checks for $600 if they